So how much more interesting it might be to see this photograph of Charles S. Dutton, which in the book apparently is being pleasured by his wife, and suggest that this scenario that Charles Dutton is acting might be you are a criminal defence attorney getting a standing ovation from your colleagues the morning after winning a big case. Or actually, Patrick Stewart's, you are a CEO who knows that the compensation committee is going to okay your massive raise. Or Edie Falco's, you are a mother, thinking about how to tell your children that you're leaving their father. Isn't that more satisfying? The disconnect, the thing happens there between those two things. So we could apply any number of scenarios to this. And if we knew it wasn't necessarily, it doesn't matter what Charles S. Dutton is thinking or what he thinks he's acting. What matters is what we place onto Charles S. Dutton, and we can have a great time. This issue of imagination as well comes up again and again and again, and I meet people who don't go to the theatre because they say, well, they question their own imagination. I'm not an imaginative person. And this always gets me, and it worries me about what imagination is and how debased we can sometimes be in respect of imagination, because imagination is a thing that I want us to redefine the word, really, because often I think imagination has become connected always with a rather simplistic, naive, over-figurative sort of display of another place. Imagination is what every human being has from birth. It's what a toddler has when they transform a cardboard box into a spaceship, but it's also what we do when we transform an actor into Hamlet. It doesn't require from us any kind of special ability. It certainly doesn't require from the theatre necessarily any bright lights or dark lights or sets and costumes or figurative representational things to help an audience's imagination. I think again we're distrusting of just how powerful imaginations are and how natural that process is in a human being to see one thing inside something else. We do it all the time. So in a way I want to say relax. There's a huge energy coming from an audience that will make these transformations without us necessarily, as theatre makers, having to do too much to help them. This sounds, I have to say, of course, I realise it sounds a little bit like I'm saying, scrap everything, do everything differently, get rid of this stuff, let's do everything in a black box, let's wear our normal clothes, and that's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I think I'm saying in relation to this is have a think first. Have a think first about the piece that you're working on. Have a think about if it's the right form for the story you want to tell. Have a think as well as how much do you need in the staging of this story for the story to be successfully communicated. And I often think we totally overgild the lily because we think that's what an audience needs for them to be transported, for them to believe that this is another place. I just think, have a little think about how bright your audience is and how much fun and pleasure they might get from thinking about Charles S. Dutton in a whole variety of scenarios that aren't necessarily the one that we think figuratively or naturalistically we should be giving. Form is really important for me. It's a very, very important thought, and I always get anxious when new writers so I get sent plays sometimes, and I always get excited by people who I know have written plays, and I sometimes get very depressed because they have taken very traditional forms for the new plays that they're writing. And I don't really understand this 1 act, 2 act, 5 act sometimes, the notion of a naturalistic transformation of character, a naturalistic transformation of space. I'm not saying that those plays don't have a place in the theatre, but they only have a place if the story that they are telling needs them to have that form to best tell that story, if that makes sense. So I think we are in danger of just, rather like the theatrical experience of a lifetime, of just accepting things, and thereby so doing, locking the experience of theatre into a notion of the past. something that has happened before, rather than coming to each theatre experience and going, what is it now? What do we need now? In this moment with these people, what do we need now? So to try and move away from figuration is that word that I use. You know, and what I mean by that is it happened in the visual art world at the beginning of the 20th century, when people realised that nice naturalistic paintings weren't going to work anymore, that the world had changed and we couldn't represent the world in that way anymore, and so people started to abstract that and to place the idea into art. And I'm excited about theatre's ability to follow that a little, to go some way in that direction, to be less reliant upon the naturalistic ideals that are so upheld in other media, and to think what it is uniquely in theatre, that theatre can do that no other art form can. And I think it is about the idea, putting theatre at the service of the idea, rather than putting theatre at the service of some notion of a fictional otherness. We have it all inside ourselves. So I'm going to talk a little bit more, but before I do that, I want to just quickly go through the... So I don't know if I can do this now. I'm going to have to go through all these actors again. I'm sorry. So this is... oh, let's go back to him. This is the last Charles Durning. This is Charles Durning acting "You Are a Retired Cop Who Has Just Been Told, Fuck You, Gramps," by a couple of young punks on the block. I mean, this is gold dust, people. It's gold dust. And then this is Alan Cumming, everyone. Alan here, and I showed this photograph to my wife, and she said, "Oh, he's got lovely eyelashes." It's a difficult one, isn't it? Ego versus the brain is difficult. Alan here is acting, "You are a man imploring your partner to come with him to visit your parents." There's a whole universe there, isn't there? A whole universe. I want to end with this. I don't know if you can see it. This is a work of art, everyone. It's a work of art called Ledger. And it's by an artist called Robert Ryman, and it is fundamentally a blank canvas. And I want to read to you another artist's response to this piece of work, because I think it's fascinating, and I want to think about our relation to visual art. I'm doing that at the moment with the show England that was at the Hugh Lane Gallery last year and is at the Whitechapel Gallery now. Tickets are still available, ends next Tuesday. Excuse me, this is a serious acting exercise. So just take some time, maybe a little breath, some little breathing. Just take a few deep breaths, please. Can we just take this seriously? I'm going to read the scenario again in a very gentle way. You're a scheming nun, plotting to bring down a rival for the affections of the abbess. So just give you 30 seconds just to really inhabit that. Maybe 15 seconds. And then I'm going to count down from 5 to 1. When I get to 1, I'd like you to really find the reality of the scheming nun, thinking about the plot and thinking about the affections of the abbess. If you don't do this, no one will notice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. That's amazing. Well, do one for you, sir. It's a very different one. It's much more masculine. You are a cross-country truck driver on a Kansas highway. Oh, I can do this. You're a cross-country truck driver on a Kansas highway, snapping out of a momentary doze to see that you are in the oncoming lane. There's a much more active bit of acting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Quite good, really. So many actors in the audience, it's extraordinary. The last thing I want to do is an exercise that I used to do a lot. I haven't done it for years, actually. I did a project at Brixton Prison once. And every morning when we went to Brixton Prison, I would do this exercise. And what you have to do, and it's quite difficult if you aren't sitting next to other people, is What you do, because you've just done some acting, it's very important. When you've done a bit of acting, you need to just sort of relax, and you also need to congratulate each other.